Why begin all these songs with an I don't give a fuck start? With an I don't give a fuck start.
Well, this is a very special episode. We are reviewing the album from Michael Kane and the Morning Afters. The album is called Broke But Not Broken. We have Michael Grattan. Did I say that? I always fuck your name up.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Right.
Grattan.
Grattan. Yeah, I said Grattan, right?
I probably say it different.
Punk from Punk as Folk YouTube channel. We have Jeff Bousquet from Dirty Decibels Podcast and Chris Chavez from, every other podcast ever.
Yeah, I have a lot.
Yeah. But this will be
throw a dart on the internet.
Yeah, pretty much.
You'll find me somewhere.
But you'll find this episode if you go to his one of his podcasts, and that is called That One Time at Bandcamp, right?
Yeah.
So I am Trev, and I host the Struggling Artist podcast. And again, we're here to talk about an album that drops the day this episode will come out.
Today.
I'm excited to talk about it, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is different for us, right? This is like we're testing out new waters.
Yeah, typically we're coming with Bandcamp picks and we dive right in. We discuss and get deep on certain songs and and feelings. And this, we're actually just going to kind of talk about this new album from Michael Kane and the Morning Afters.
Let's get to it, I guess, right?
Well, I'll say this. It was cool. It's cool listening to this album after having been exposed to some of his songs in your living room when he was playing the acoustic show. So I'd heard a few songs already that way, not realizing they were coming out on this album. So hearing some of those songs on the album fleshed out, and with full band backing it was actually awesome. But for me, I'll kick it off and just say this. I was blown away from his music when you first started sharing it with me, Trev, when you're like, check this out, and I heard some of his singles, and then I heard the EP, and I was just like who is this guy? Like everything felt so familiar about it, but still not. And so I was like all about like, let me check out what else there was. But there was no full length album. And then, getting to know him a little bit more and talking about the process, I knew the story behind the making of this album. And I don't know, man, for me, it just blew me away how just complete this album feels. It feels like a complete package from beginning to end. And it's great.
Yeah. So for an overall view of this album, right? When I met Michael Kane, it was like early 2020. So a lot of these songs weren't out. They weren't out yet. I don't even think the first time he sent me one of these songs, it wasn't mastered yet. And I was still blown away by it. But like, we'll talk about like the stuff that he had put out prior to this. To me, I always enjoyed it. I thought it was really good and it was awesome. And I was a big fan of it. But then they did a cover song of a folk song called Indiana. And that was the first time I really heard, like, I was like, oh, this is a different direction than what they've been doing. Cool. And then when I heard songs from this album and then eventually I heard the album, like it's just to me, they've gone in a completely different direction than their last two EPs. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And again, the same thing that you just said, Chris, and I've said it on the earlier podcast, so I'm not going to reiterate too much, but like they always, like from the very beginning, they have that sound, that familiar sound, and they just fire off on all cylinders. And I for a band that's relatively new, I feel like they just connect. They just click really well.
Yeah, they're a band that's relatively new that feels like they've been around forever. And a lot of that has to be like band chemistry too, right? So they feel like, I feel like these guys have been playing forever with each other, and they really haven't.
I guess technically they are fairly young band, but they don't feel like a brand new band for me. Like I feel like they have been around. I mean, at least, like for me, I also was mostly exposed to their music live because Mike's played a lot of shows like at the Midway and shows with Coffin Salesman, with Aria, shows with like other friends of mine in the city. So like I mostly have seen him play live, I feel like. And I kind of feel like it was about time for like a nice solid full length from them. I'm really stoked that it's here because like you said, he's done a lot of EPs and splits and singles and stuff like that like over the past few years. So this was like kind of like a long time coming for them. And I think like I'm really happy for them because they're just, to me, they're just like a very full sounding rock, like well-rounded rock and roll band that like lends itself to a nice full-length record that has like a whole arc to it and everything. So I feel like most of what I've experienced of Mike Kane thus far has been in little bits and pieces, and so now it's nice to kind of have this whole record. But yeah, I guess I don't know, I didn't really think of them as like a new band, but they are relatively like within the past, they've only been around in this iteration for the past like 5-ish years probably, right?
So I guess I guess this would be like now like their journeyman's into this band. But from the very beginning I always felt like, you know, even though the lineup's changed a little bit here and there, it's been tweaked, but like even like they're, you know, laughing at the shape I'm in, I just felt like this band has been around forever, and that really wasn't the case at the time, you know. I don't know, I think this band, there's something special about this band, and it has to it has to definitely do with like the band's chemistry within each other, within themselves. But when you listen to them, like when you guys listen to this album, what came to mind?
It ties in with the familiarity you were talking about. I was just gonna say, like, other bands definitely came to mind, other artists definitely came to mind. Mike's influences are right there on his sleeve, but it's not, other people have tried to do that before and fucked it up, like just tried to copy. This feels very much to me like the music that I liked as a child musically, but I couldn't get in touch with lyrically. Like there wasn't that connection. And now being grown up, somebody taking that style, bringing back rock and roll piano, which fucking is amazing. I love good. That. and not making it just a reductive carbon copy of other artists that come to mind, making it something new, making it their own. I love this album.
Yeah, because it's classic. It's got that tie to those classic rock and roll bands that they bring to mind, even arenas where you know, where rock and roll it wasn't metal, it wasn't hip hop, it was rock and roll, and it was an arena, and the place is just bouncing because the music and the band are bouncing. And that's what this is. This is a rock and roll band. It's just this whole album, there's swing in there, there's a lot of swagger, there's some nice, you know, toned down soft moments too. But I love that you brought up the thing about the keys, man, the piano, because the keys just really just, for me, brings this to a different level. Do you know what I mean? Like when you listen to Laughing at the Shape I'm In, you don't really hear much keys in there, not as much as this album. This album feels so full. I love it.
Like one of my favorite songs off the album, are we allowed to name the songs? Bring It On Home. Like that first 54 seconds of that song is just the keys and Michael's voice.
Yeah.
The whole time, and I was blown away with it. Like, and then the drums come in, you get that little, but like that first 54 seconds, like you really get the sense of power in his voice and the emotion in what he's saying.
I think Mike is one of a small list of people that I really wish I could sing like. I've always really admired his voice so much, and I think as much as there's this really familiar sound to the music, for me, obviously, like that rock and roll sound is so classic and so familiar and so like sort of like soul food as music, you know, in a sense. But Mike's voice to me is so unbelievably unique and distinct, and like I could hear him and know immediately that it's him and not anybody else. And that is actually what I like the best about him. I mean, I love that he has like the sort of gravelly husk of like a Chuck Reagan, but I can also hear like the tone or like timbre almost of Micah Schnabel from Two Cow Garage. Like there's this really cool mix that he does when he sings. I don't know exactly how to do it. I wish, like I said, there's about like 5 or 6 artists who, like, if I could sing like anybody, like those would be my choices. Like if I could have a voice like that, and Mike's is definitely one of them. I think his voice is so cool. I've always thought that his voice was like really unique and just like really distinct and really cool.
And it's soulful. It's so soulful.
Yeah,
his voice.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's got this dark character to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just always been I think that probably in and of itself is also a familiar thing on some level too. Like, even though it is like really unique and distinct, there's something relatable almost about the like emotion in his voice when he's singing, that there's like a painfulness there, but also a kind of a cynicism that I think kind of in the way that he sings. But also I wanted to say that as far as the piano goes, I was looking for a couple minutes really quickly right before we started the call to try to see if he had mentioned where they recorded the album. And Trev, I don't know if you know maybe where they recorded this, but I would love to know where they recorded this, because obviously for me that's huge, paying attention to like what it sounds like. And that piano rips and it sounds gorgeous, and as does the whole record. But I think it was recorded really well and mixed really well too. So that's obviously
I don't know where it was
an
recorded.
advantage for me.
I'm not. I think he told me at one point, and I just don't have. You know what I mean? I don't remember.
And that's Helen from Helen and the Trash Pandas on backing vocals on a few of those songs, right?
Yes.
Oh, that just adds a whole other layer too. When you hear her come in with his voice, and then she's just kind of back there, and there's a soulfulness to hers as well.
Yeah, she can harmonize. Chris, you've met Helen. Like,
Yeah,
her music is phenomenal.
yeah.
I don't know if either of you guys. Well, Michael. I don't think you caught any shows of hers, but have you ever seen Helen and the Trash Pandas perform? It's great, and she's got an unreleased album that she's been sitting on that I've been like trying to get her to put out. But
And it's right along this vein, right? It's this kind of rock and roll, this blues, this soul. There's a lot of that kind of just thread throughout the music, just like in this album.
Was Mike sitting on this record since before the pandemic too, or I wasn't clear on that either? But I thought that that recording this and mixing this had already been in the works, and then kind of
I think he said they ended up in the studio 3 times since 2019.
I kind of had a feeling.
Yeah. And then the last time it just synced, and the last time when they got like the final product out of it, they had a new drummer and it just worked. I guess it was probably, I think 2021 is when they finally had everything done, and it didn't make sense for them to put it out last year.
Yeah.
So
right.
You said like Helen. You said Helen is, she's backing vocals on a few songs. Tear This World Apart, which is the opening. This is one of the songs I wanted to talk about. The opening track of this album is Tear This World Apart. He said he wrote this song to be like the opening track. It brings such a huge presence right away, that song, and there's like 7 guitar tracks on it. They've got James Lynch from Dropkick Murphys fame on that song. Yeah, so he's ripping on there.
Yeah, he is.
It's just crazy. Like, it's just, I feel like if anybody, like, far as like, all right, we want to swing for the fences on the first track. Like, I think they nailed it with this one. Like, it's a home run.
Yeah.
I think anybody who likes rock and roll music, listen to that first song and be like, yeah, I want to listen to this whole thing. I need to know what's next.
I like that. No, I was just going to agree with you that they swung for the fences with that first song, and then lyrically it sets up the rest of the album. Here I am. This is my fucking album. There's going to be heartache. There's going to be pain, but I'm coming out just rocking and rolling as hard as I can for this first song.
Yeah, it's their statement, right? It's the statement immediately to say this is what you're about to get into, and then it's a ride. You're just on a ride of just amazing musicianship. Great songwriting. There's a lot of really good songwriting in here. Great. I listened. I was saying again right before we recorded this, I listened to it again. So I literally finished the last song, got up here, turned everything on, and got on. So just coming off listening to it again, it's kind of still in my head. It makes you move. It's one of these ones that you can't sit still. Like your head will be bobbing, your feet will be tapping. You'll be dancing. I don't know, but it's one of those kinds of albums from beginning to end.
The first time this album was sent to me, I was driving up to Maine, and I'm like, let me listen to this while I'm driving. It's a good stereo system in the car. We'll do that. I remember I wrote a note, and it's probably still on my phone, but it was the only note I ever wrote for this album. And it was like finger tapping from the very first riff, So like, I'm in my car, I'm just tapping. Like, this song mesmerizes people. And I've seen them perform songs live from this album. And even me, I'm like a stone-faced kind of guy. Like, I could be having the best time in the world, and people think like, you okay? You know what I mean? When I watch them live, like I'm fucking slapping the side of my thigh. I'm slapping my quad. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I can't help but move in some way. And I feel that was the case with everybody who have seen them live performing, especially these new songs. You know,
Yeah, Mike brings it when he plays live. I mean, I've seen him play solo acoustic, and his stage presence is just fantastic. I'm super jealous of, like, I wish I think he is just a supremely talented songwriter, lyrically and musically, and he's like one of those people that is the definition of like making it look easy. You know, he's just like smooth as hell when he's on stage just playing. You know,
and if you know his story and you know all of this, you know, he started playing music when he was like, no, he's always played music, but he went back to music after raising his kids. You know what I mean? So like,
I did not know that.
He took a break from, like, I think he said it was like 2002 till like 2017. He didn't play. Wow. He wasn't in any bands. He said he kept writing because that's what writers do. So like, I think that makes this album so much more special that it might not have, this thing might have never happened. Yeah. And he had such a late start. Started a band when he was 40 or almost 40. And now look what we got. I don't know. I mean, I think that's awesome. And I like the story. Like I said, he was in bands with his cousin again in 2002. His kid was at an age where he's like, all right, I gotta stop and I've got to take care of life. And I mean, that's fucking admirable, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what he did. And then, his cousin had passed away, the one he was always in bands with. And then he was like, all right, well, I'm never going to do music again, because that's who I used to do music with. And then he ended up doing some acoustic thing, I think, with Mark Lind. And then he met Franklin. Or Franklin, he met Franklin because Franklin like tuned the guitar for him. And then Franklin asked him to play a show and like to open up with an acoustic set, and he did. And then Franklin was like, hey, do you want to like make a band out of this? How it happened is like, I don't know, I guess it's the definition of like kismet, right? It's just kind of just the way it happened. It was just, I mean, again, to hear an album like this for a band where the front man, you know, the writer, whatever, he didn't do anything with music for over a decade, well over a decade. I think it makes it a little more special.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, it gives me hope, like someday I can maybe be good at music when I grow up. I think it's cool because it's like there doesn't ever have to be a right time, or there isn't a specific right time. You know, music can just happen and be what it needs to be when it's the right time. I think that's a cool example of that. I didn't actually really know that. I didn't know enough about his history, so that's really cool.
When I first had him on the podcast, that's when I first met him, you know, and I asked him that because I said, you know, I listened to your first 2 EPs and I'm like, I was pissed off that I didn't know who you were by then, but then I was like, that's all you had. And then he told me the story, you know what I mean? Right. Like, that's so fucking cool, man. Like, you know, and then you see how everything like that he does with this album, with Broke But Not Broken, to me, like even like the sequencing of the tracks is,
it's great.
So you go from a song, Tear This World Apart, that has 7 guitar tracks, like 7 guitars in it, right? The next song is Dark Nights. There's only 1 guitar in that song. 1 guitar. To me, that just like, you just went from one extreme to another and you fucking nailed it.
But it keeps the energy, like the placement of tracks and the choice in which they ordered these, it keeps this album going. There's a drive to it. When it needs to slow down a little, it does, but then it just picks right back up and takes off. So many good songs on this album that I'm just going to name one that always like, this is one I always look forward to coming on right after, but is John Wayne. That is such a good song. And just going back to the songwriting piece too, I feel like Mike's done something which a lot of it sounds crazy when you want to lump them into big names like the Beatles or the Stones, but it's kind of this idea where the musician has figured out the right kind of recipe for songwriting, right? Because there's a specific way that you can write songs with whatever the chord progression is, whatever the melody is, as long as there's a little familiarity in there. There's a way that if you figure it out, it'll hook people every time. There were people, you know, throughout music that have figured it out. It feels like every single song they put out, you're just like, can you do a bad song? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like Mike has figured out how to write songs that make people feel, not just with lyrically, but even with specific melodies or chord progressions, you know what I mean? They're familiar chord progressions, but then there's a change that you didn't expect, and that makes you go, ooh, and it's exciting.
While we're talking about feelings and track ordering, so I had started out doing, I'm pointing at shit you guys can't see, but I started going track by track through side A. And I don't know if you guys have paid like real close attention to the way those tracks are ordered, but by the 6th song, it's Me and You. I'm getting weepy because I was like, the whole, I'm not going to give it away, but like the whole way that first side is ordered, and then to have Me and You be the last song on it is just kind of heart-wrenching for me.
Yeah.
And I told Trev, I was like, man, I think I was editorializing every song at some point, like just like trying to make it fit me. But they do. I think there's I think they're very personal songs, but there's enough generality. I don't know the word, but
I think like
they
Chris,
can fit you.
Yeah.
I think like Chris was saying there, it's a ride. He crafted it perfectly. It's a perfectly ordered record, and that's all by design. I think, to go back to what you were saying before about him writing songs that you can feel like both musically and as well as lyrically, like I think so for me, I mean, obviously like you can hear, and part of it goes back to just my love of like the sound of the record and the way it was produced and the way that it was mixed and the way it sounds. But like I love his style of songwriting that is so indicative of classic rock and roll, and like has that sound. But I particularly love the way he blends in the kind of jangly guitar sound of I happen to know, I mean, I know he's a huge Replacements fan, or that he's a big one of his big influences, obviously the Replacements. And I think the Replacements are such an interesting band because they are kind of considered a punk band, but not really. I mean, you know, they're bridging the gap between those two worlds for sure. And they were at a time when the major label rock and roll record industry was still big, but then punk was also coming up too. And so they've always been like, you know, they're one of my favorite bands in that sense. And Mike nails calling back to their sound like really well on this record, but not just the way that he's writing riffs and guitar parts and stuff like that, but the sound, the actual producing, you know, the actual like way it was recorded and mixed. And that I think is super cool. I love the way that he blends that sound into kind of a more standard classic rock and roll Springsteen type sound, you know, with the pianos and stuff like that. So I love that about it. That's probably my favorite thing about the record.
So let's talk about like, so we just basically, we covered the A side, right? The B side starts off with Carol K, which beautiful song.
Another rocking, swinging song.
And then it goes to Like John Wayne, which is my favorite, probably my favorite song. It's hard to pick a favorite song on an album that's this strong. But if I had to, if Jeff put a gun to my head and said, you need to pick one, dude, I'm probably going to pick Like John Wayne to be my like favorite track on this album. I don't know why,
I like
Jeff,
that.
I don't know why I think you're violent, Jeff, but
I love how you picked me.
Yeah.
I like that every song on this album is so good that if we were just talking about one song, pick any fucking song, there's a good chance I'm going to say, yeah, that's my favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, it'll be the other song we're talking about.
So a fun fact about Michael Caine in the Morning Afters, he uses the word radio quite a bit in all of his songs.
I remember him talking
just in
about
case
it.
you didn't know he was a Springsteen fan.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
He
you know,
lays that one on the table for you right there.
but what I'm gonna say about it is like I feel like you can pick any song off this album, and if we were in the, you know, back when the radio
Existed.
heydays, you could, I think any song on this album is strong enough to be on terrestrial radio.
Yeah, I agree.
Or it sounds like a song you could have heard playing through a radio,
Yeah,
Right.
perhaps in times past.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
And some of them are mixed to actually intentionally sound like they are playing through like some older speakers I saw.
Yeah, it's got a warmth and kind of a artistically placed lo-fi parts in the mix that evoke that sound. I mean, that's totally the sound he's going for, like that really classic rock and roll sound on that. I can't wait to get my copy on vinyl, you know, and listen to it that way. I think will be a whole new experience to enjoy the record through. So
For sure, dude. I'm looking forward to that.
I forget what song it was, but I was listening to it out here and I actually got up from my chair to make sure the record was clean because it had the little baked in
Little
pops
cracklies.
and crackles.
Yeah. So I mean, I've listened to it on vinyl already. I've listened to it on cassette. I've listened to it digitally.
On cassette. Wow.
Yeah. And I've heard it live, and I've heard a lot of it live. And I tell you what, I can't pick my favorite way of listening to it. It's just,
And there's the acoustic versions too, the living room acoustic versions of some of those songs, which were awesome.
I don't know. What are your guys' like we'll start with Michael. What was your favorite? If you had to, if Jeff put a knife to your face and said, "You better."
At least we're
pick one of these."
downgrading to a knife.
He's like, "You bet, yeah, it's my."
If I put a knife to your face, not your throat, just your face, I'm just gonna like cut your cheek or something.
Yeah. He's like, "You're not
I've
gonna
been
be
stabbed before.
He's like, you're not gonna be pretty anymore, so you better pick one of these songs." What would it be?
Bring It On Home. It's like the middle, or not middle. It's close to the end of the A side. I just love that song. I love the way it starts with just Michael and the piano, and then the bass and the drums come in later to kind of fill out the sound.
Yeah.
Without ever taking away from that, like old timey Tom Waits, just me and a piano crooning type of sound he had going on.
I tell you what, too. Like, as far as cover songs go,
yeah, that's the only one on there, right?
That is the only one on here. But like for that song, like I've heard people cover that before. He nails it.
He knocks it out, dude.
Yeah.
He does.
I didn't know it was a cover song. I didn't put it together.
Sam Cooke.
No, I never put it together. So I thought, my bad, Michael, for picking a song that you didn't write.
No, that's just that. I think that shows that's a just another example of how well he put this thing together. So, all right, Chris. Now, if Jeff had a what are those things called? Like,
a flamethrower.
A flamethrower.
Flamethrower. Jeff, we have to get you counseling.
Yeah, Jeff, I feel like you have a flamethrower.
We're gonna pick a different weapon for each person.
If Jeff had a flamethrower and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna turn you into crispy chicken if you don't pick a favorite song from this album," what would it be and why?
Yeah, dude, it's like John Wayne. It's a great song, and I mean, there's so much good about it. There's so much energy in it. You keep saying his voice is great on this album, and it is throughout. But in this song, it's just perfect too. But if it wasn't like John Wayne, because I know that was the one you picked, I do like Tear This World Apart. Just the way it opens with a legit statement, like, I'm gonna start an album with an I don't give a fuck song. You know what I mean? Like, holy cow, this dude just does. All right, cool. Where are we going from here? And it's just great. And then it just rocks. It skyrockets and keeps going.
All right, Jeff.
So what weapon am I holding up to myself now?
Well, I don't. No. Now,
if I was gonna jump off a cliff,
yeah. What cliff?
What song would I profess to the universe is my favorite off the album?
There you go.
No, I'm not saying that. I was gonna say if Michael took that knife away from you and pulled out a what are they called, like a blackjack, like the shoehorn thing that they used to in the 30 gangster.
Oh yeah.
If he had one of those, he's like, I'm gonna clobber you unless you tell me what your favorite song is and why off this album.
Like a nunchuck, or like, what are you talking about?
I'm gonna clobber you, fella.
Like a mace,
like the little bat. The little black bat.
Like a little club.
It was like rubber.
Little shillelagh.
Yeah, no.
Oh God.
Michael and Jeff, you guys are too violent.
It's lost my mind.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I love his lyrical structure of that. It's a clever hook. I lost my mind when I was 22. I lost my mind when I was 33. I lost whatever. And it's got a cynical, humorous kind of spin to it. And that's the one. That's the one on the record.
Again, Helen's harmonies in that song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I said before, I was also not familiar with her, but I love the sound of the whole thing.
Oh God, I hope her album.
My favorite track
this year. I hope her album comes out this year. But all right, so that's yours. All right, fun fact: that's also Mark Lynn's favorite track.
Nice.
And I don't know if this made like the last thing we did. I don't know. I've talked to Michael like a million times between this past 2 months, but he was telling me, he was like, if Facebook has those weird algorithm things and they'll show you like a t-shirt or something. He had one that said, "I lost my mind in 2022." And he's like, what the fuck?
It's creepy how they know.
Didn't we all?
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think that's it. It's a relatable song in like every way. Like anybody could listen to it and probably relate it. And also I think it radiates like the larger feel of the whole record. I do think there's obviously a autobiographical tones to the record. Not every single track or every single lyric, but like overall there is that theme. I mean it's literally called Broke But Not Broken, right? So was the most relatable that stood out to me, just as far as the way he wrote it. So
now I don't know, feel free if anyone wants to answer this or not. I don't remember an album, I don't remember the last album that I thought I could listen to front to back and be like, man, every song on this is just great. Now, if you don't feel that way, you don't have to answer that. But Do you guys have a song like not an album to compare this to, obviously, but one that I want to say the last album I listened to that I could listen to every track was like the first White Zombie album. Like that's how long ago it's been since I've heard an album this strong.
Wow.
This strong. So what about you? Like, do you guys have an album where you like every track is just that good to you? I mean, I'm sure there has been some since that one, but I just can't think of like that one stood out so
Just
much.
stands
to me.
out.
Yeah. That I can really. I mean, I'm sure I have. You know what? I mean, probably I could probably.
Yeah, I'm looking at my record collection right now.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, let me see. There's what's in there.
I could probably. I'll probably retract that and say
the 59, the Gaslight Anthem's 59 sound for me was always a record I considered a cover to cover, pretty much solid cover to cover. Like I love every track. I think it's a perfect record. This record that's behind me on the wall way back there, Better Oblivion Community Center, which sounds like nothing like Mike Kane or anything like that, but is it's Connor Oberst and Phoebe Bridgers. They did this thing together. I pretty much would say I listened to that cover to cover. I think that's a perfect record. I love it. Front to back.
I'll probably change mine to Off of Their Heads Won't Be Missed, but that's like an acoustic like compilation album, really,
right? Yeah, those are
so
acoustic versions of most of their songs. Yeah,
so that was
but it is a great record.
It is a great record. Spotify told me at the end of last year that I listened to that one too much. So yeah, but like I don't know. Yeah, obviously there's been albums that do that, but like for me, an album like this can just stand out.
Oh, I didn't name mine because I do have two.
All right, what are they?
Frank Turner's Tape Deck Heart. Good singer songwriter, and the second one's gonna sound like I'm shilling for fucking Stateline, but Mark Linden, The Unloved, The Last Bastion.
Yeah, that's a really good fucking album too.
I listened to it the whole way through, probably at least once a week.
Yeah. You know what? I blanked. So obviously there's other ones, but right now this is out of the ones I've listened to in the last for new albums right now. This is it. I don't know.
Meatwave has a good EP back front to back. Just saying. Volcano Park.
I have already told people this is my favorite album of 20. What year is this? 22. Yeah.
What is this one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tear This World, Broke But Not Broken. Yeah.
All right. I mean, so you can get a copy of Broke But Not Broken by going to getpunk.com and it'll be available as of now, right? Yeah. So
get-punk.com.
It could be either way, but yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
You can get it on cassette, CD, and vinyl.
Can't wait till they get the vinyl and put it on. Get those headphones out. It's gonna sound so good.
See, I can't wait to get the tape and look at it because I buy tapes now apparently and don't have a fucking tape player.
Do you stock up on number 2 pencils as well?
No, I never have to worry about it getting ruined. That's the great thing about not having a cassette player.
just make art out of them. Just put them all on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
All right. Well, I hope this was I mean, we don't need to rate the album. We all liked it, right? So.
Oh yeah, it was great. It's a great album, and whoever's listening, if you've never heard Michael Kane in the Morning Afters, now's your time, right? Look it up, listen to it, and this for me, I would guarantee that anybody listens to this, there's gonna find something about it that they're gonna absolutely love. Whether it's the voice, whether it's the music, it's the feelings, the songwriting, you're gonna find something in this album that you're just gonna say, just like Mike said, this is one of my favorite albums of the year.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I stand by all that 100%. All right, well, thank you guys.
Yeah, it was a good time.
This was a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll be able to do more of these reviews. Maybe people will be like, "Hey, you guys want to review our album?" And we'll do it.
Oh yeah, I love having an album for 2 months that is mind blowing, but I can't fucking talk about it to anybody.
All right, where can people
now
find you?
It's finally here.
Yeah. Where can people find you guys?
I'll start it. Find me at bicbp-radio.com. It's the network. There's a whole bunch of podcasts on there. I'm on about 5 of them. So you can find me there. And
Dirty Decibels Podcast, anchor.fm/Dirty Decibels or dirtydecibelscast.com. Also on Apple and Spotify.
Just type Punk as Folk into YouTube and my channel pops up.
And I am Trev, the Struggling Artist. You can find me at the Struggling Artist Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. That was redundant. Fuck.